Welcome to Book Huddle. I'm your host, Karen Reeder with Readgab. I'm excited to bring on author Janet Sumner Johnson. She wrote this amazing series, Winterton Deception. Is it a series or is it duology?
That is the question of the day.
Oh,
So,
is it? So we'll just start with this. Everybody go read the series and love it and buy the sequel so that she can write us book three. Because I know
yes, yes,
that's how
thank
this
you.
works. Supply and demand. We need to demand it for it to get out here. All right, so Jenna, I love to give authors a second. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you in addition to being an author.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And my name is Janet Sumner Johnson, as you said. I currently live in Utah, northern Utah, and I have three kids. They are on the older end of things, so all the teen stuff. It's great, great fodder for books. Um, I grew up in Utah, but I've lived all across the United States from Virginia to Oregon, every single time zone of the continental United States. So I kind of claim all of it. But I love beyond reading. Obviously, I love reading and writing. I love playing the piano and I dabble at the guitar and I like to do outdoor activities like tennis and walking. And I used to go running. Um, Now I walk.
Nice. Good.
And yeah, and last thing about me, I guess, because everyone always wants to know, we have a dog.
Oh, nice.
Um, so we're a one dog family, and he is a little stinker, but my kids adore him, so
Good.
he stays.
Perfect. Perfect. I love it. Yes. I have a stinker dog myself and I have a stinker cat coming into the room. So if we hear some of that. So, Janet, I I love this so much. So we've got Winterton Deception. The first one is Final Word, and it's about a spelling bee mystery. And so how niche is that, everyone? Spelling bee, right? And so you think maybe this is for just like a unique group of kids, but this mystery is just so awesome and it appeals to so many. So I'm just going to let Janet introduce the book and tell us about the first book, and then also we need to hear a little bit about the second.
Well, thank you. It is a little bit niche, the whole spelling bee thing. But Final Word is about two kids, Hope and Gordon, who have never known their father. They grew up very poor with their mother, and their mother never talked about their dad. So they look into it, find out who he is, and turns out he was a wealthy Winterton, a dictionary magnate family in their town that runs a spelling bee fundraiser every single year. And so Hope wants nothing to do with them, but Gordon is like, I want family. I want in. So he finagles away into that spelling bee, and they end up at the Winterton Chalet, the mansion where they're surrounded by family, but no one knows who they are. And so, as they are part of the spelling bee, they also discover that they've been left a message by a secret friend who they don't know who it is, who does know who they are. And they are sent off on this clue hunt, which is giving them information about their dad and the secrets that the Winterton holds the night that he died. So it's a lot of fun. It was really difficult to manage to balance those two sides, the spelling bee and the clue hunt, but I loved it. I loved every second of it. Um, I am a spelling fanatic. I'm terrible at it, but I love spelling bees. Like,
That's so
send me to
awesome to
scripts.
know because
Yeah.
the people that are into it, it's intense and competitive.
It
And
is
so,
so intense. And we see what they do at Scripps, but there are a lot of spelling bees that run a little bit differently than what we see in our basic school spelling bee. So I got to play with that a little bit in the book, which was really fun. I got to have, an elimination rounds with spelling and kind of create that. And that was just really fun to create. I practiced it. I made my family practice it at home to see how it would work.
nice. How did your kids feel about that?
Um, Not so great.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
So
my
they're not
husband, I think
spelling
they
bees.
were all surprised at how bad at spelling they were. But
How bad you guys are at spelling.
I know, well, they're big readers.
Right,
And
right.
so they feel like they have this great vocab, and they do. They have this great vocabulary, but spelling is a different beast. Doesn't matter how smart you are.
Absolutely. That's like me with grammar and punctuation. My little secret there that my husband, I'll have him proofread stuff, especially when it's like an important one. And he'll be like, "Do you want me to teach you how to use commas?" And I'm like, "Or if I haven't picked it up yet, I could just have you proofread for me." And he'll be like, "Oh, you used a comma right there." And I was like, "I threw that in. Yeah, I just thought it might be good." And so, yeah, my husband's like, "I cannot believe how bad you are at this. You teach school, you teach kids to do this." And I'm like, well, I did once. I used to teach sixth grade, and I would read about it, and then I'd teach them, and then I don't know. There are certain things that just fall out of your head, and so maybe that's for
Mhm.
your family. Spelling just falls out of their head.
Yep, yep. I guess that's the case, but it was a lot of fun to create that book.
That's awesome.
So, book two, because I guess fault lines. So it was really fun to continue that story. And if I'm telling a secret here, I actually wrote the first one as a standalone. And I
Okay.
think you can feel that when you read
Yeah.
it. It has a pretty solid ending, but there were things I wasn't able to get to. So I
Right.
was really excited when it sold as a series. Um, so starting book two, I got to continue with the Winterton family and with Hope and Gordon. And now that all the events have happened from book one, they are about to get together for the first time since then for Thanksgiving. But Hope has this really big secret that she knows the family needs to know, but it's not really her secret to tell.
Right.
So she has planned to help the family learn about this, that what's happening, and suddenly someone goes missing and everything blows up in her face, and there's a big family estrangement, maybe is the best way to say that. You know, you have family they get together at the end, but just because you suddenly have connected at one point doesn't mean it stays that way. And suddenly everything's hunky dory. So it was really fun to explore these new relationships, how each of them were feeling about them. And as they are searching for Ms. Springer, who has gone missing, they have to find Mr. Winterton, James Winterton, who walked out on the family a lot of years ago because supposedly he can find this missing person, Ms. Springer. So it was really fun to explore how it felt for someone who had been abandoned, but also someone who had left everything he'd known and trying to come back from that and from a huge mistake he'd made in his life. So it was really interesting to explore all of these themes. And of course, there's another big clue hunt, and they have to find a missing literary treasure that everyone would love to find.
Yes.
Um, that
Worth
was kind of
so much
dream
money.
fulfillment for me.
Yes.
Um,
So are you so into Jane Austen?
I am. I remember being introduced to Pride and Prejudice in high school. We watched the movie, and have been, I remember not wanting to. I was like, oh, this is going to be so boring. And then we started the film, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was so wrong. This is so good. And I read everything Jane Austen wrote as a high school student. And just it fascinates me. So I thought if I've got this older character, why not give her a love that I have? Then I get to do all this research on stuff that I really enjoy. And it was really fun to take what was real about Jane Austen's history and then twist it just a little
And
bit and
so
add
real.
something that what if? And of course
Yes.
it's not real, but it was so fun.
That is awesome. I love what ifs, and
Ah,
there are definitely so many like teens and sometimes even younger girls who are so interested in Jane Austen, but if nothing else, their parents probably are, and so they can have that commonality to talk to them. I love it. Do you know what?
yes.
I've only seen the movies, so
And
I
I do want to say, if you're not a Jane Austen fan, that's fine. Like, you're not gonna hate it because you don't like Jane Austen.
absolutely
Um,
same with the spelling bee, right?
yes,
So even if you're
absolutely. If
not
you don't
into
love spelling, luckily you do not have to do the spelling in the book.
yes, good news for me as well. So. But if you're into mystery, if you're into danger, because there in both books, there's a lot of mystery, like with the clue hunts, and then there are some very dangerous situations that they find themselves in. And
Yes.
oh, I love the mystery. So tell us about crafting a mystery.
It is so hard. I had I'd had mystery elements in
Right.
previous books, but I had never done a full-blown mystery. And of course, there are different types of mysteries, right? Like a murder mystery,
Yes.
Hercule Poirot, all of those things. A
Which I just
puzzle
noticed
mystery.
your French perfectly
Oh,
right there. I don't know how perfectly, but I know I don't say Hercules what I've said, you know. So,
I
yeah,
speak French, and so like when I have a name that's French, I
you
can't
better say
just
it in French.
say it
Yeah.
wrong, right?
How do we
So,
translate a name?
yes. So turns out puzzle mysteries are the hardest mysteries to write. Like I talked to several other mystery writers as I was preparing, and I'd said, "You have done this before, so you can help me." They're like, "Oh no, you don't understand. Puzzle mysteries are like just a step harder than
Yes.
everything else." I had to have all of the clues planned out before I could even start writing, and like what
Right.
was going to what, the written out, what they needed to solve, what hints I needed to drop in so they could solve it if it was going to be a little bit harder. So it was uh, fun to research all of the different
Yes.
types of clues that you can use when on a puzzle mystery in
Okay.
particular.
Right.
Um, and one thing that I did do that I always wanted in a book is I made the clues solvable by the reader, not just the person
Yes.
in the book.
Because I've noticed that like about Chris Grabenstein, that the kids love to like solve those puzzles as they read. I
Yes.
remember the first time I read a Chris Grabenstein book, I read over it. I didn't even try. And so then when I was reading Winterton Deception, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to figure out what's going on here as I go along because I know that they're so into this. They love a good puzzle.
Yes, and in fact, I was able to participate in some book clubs where kids were reading it and talked to them about it. And so I asked because I was curious. I'm like,
Yes.
so did
Did you?
anybody stop to solve any of the clues? And yes, yes, they do. So I was really happy about that. And I just think I'm a big puzzle person. I
Yes.
love solving puzzles. So it just made me happy that there are other people out there who love doing it. And again, if you don't love puzzles,
You could read over
keep
it.
reading. Keep
Yes,
reading, it
you
will get
could.
solved for you.
You could very well just keep reading. I remember thinking it was so weird for my husband when we first got married and we would watch movies, and my mom and dad always did out loud that they would predict what was happening. And so I'd lean over and I'd be like, this person's gonna die. And I would you make my predictions. And for one, he hates it because he feels like I ruined the movie. So I need to keep my predictions to myself. And for two, he doesn't want to do that like at all. He just wants to
Uh-huh.
sit there and enjoy his movie. And so very much a reader, young or old, could just read the book and just enjoy it as it unfolds and enjoy the mystery and not have to solve it. But then, and I think this is so great that kids who love puzzles, maybe more than reading, it might bring them to reading because it gives them something more to do in addition to reading the book.
Well, I hope so. That would be just the perfect author
Yes,
joy is
right.
knowing that a book of mine led a kid to wanting to read more.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. Love it, love it. So, also, so much in the books, we have miscommunication and misunderstanding. And a lot of that stems from being of different backgrounds. Because, like you said, the one family is really, really poor, and the other family is not just a little rich. They are incredibly wealthy. And so there's so many misunderstandings because of this. And so I was telling my husband about it before I came down and I was like, yeah, they're super wealthy, but you don't have to be wealthy to relate, right? You can be somewhere in the middle because the big thing is you can relate to misunderstandings. You can relate, like there's one point where two have become good friends and then that friendship is on the rocks because of this misunderstanding and that they feel like trust is broken. And so I love what a big theme that this is. And so you said that you had to first do all your puzzle clues. Did you have a goal that you were like, I'm going to put in here all of this about family, and or did that just unravel naturally because it was a
No,
natural thing to happen with differences?
so along with that, I did know that I wanted my theme to be second chances
Nice.
and forgiveness and coming back from big mistakes. I feel like I see that a lot in life. A lot of people are unwilling to forgive big mistakes. Or they feel that they are unforgivable after big mistakes that they've made. And so I definitely had those communication themes in my head as I was planning what the story would be. Communication is a big, big thing for me. Like with my husband, I tell him, all these things, I just need to communicate. I need to communicate, and then I can deal with almost anything if
Yes.
you're communicating with me about what's going on. And it's such a simple thing that a lot of people fail to do.
Right.
And so I definitely wanted to showcase why we miscommunicate, obviously without like trying to like ram it down people's throats, but
Right.
allowing
Right.
them to see it in a story.
In a very natural way. And that flowed that way. That's why I was wondering if it just happened because
Yeah.
it flowed so naturally.
I I'm as an author, I pay attention to little details a lot in life and things that happen and I think about them. And here's like a story just why we miscommunicate. I was in a foreign country with a friend who was from France.
Okay.
So when I was learning French, right? And I was selling a bike.
Okay.
And they said, "Well, how much do you want for the bike?" I said, how about $75?" And, thinking that's a pretty even number. And she's like, "You Americans, why do you say 75? Choose 70 or choose 80, but don't choose 75." And I was like, "Well, I had thought of it as an even number. So where's that difference?"
Quarters.
Quarters in America, and they don't have quarters. They're 20-cent pieces.
Yes.
They go by 20s and
That's so
10s.
funny.
And we go by quarters. And it had never occurred to me that that would be a point of miscommunication simply because of how and where we grew up in the money system. There are
Right.
so many things that go into how we understand the things that happen around us. And if we don't take that chance to look at it from someone else's perspective, and in Hope's case, um, the perspective of what it must be like for someone who has money, or
Right.
looking backwards, her cousins looking at Hope, what it is like for someone who has never had money. And I love that I was able to continue that theme in book two, in Fault Lines, because I feel like there were some moments, some really great moments where now that they're doing things together, these children who, even if they felt like they didn't grow up with a lot,
Yeah.
discovered just how much they had grown up with and just how much Hope and Gordon did not have. And that makes a difference in how you see the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know there are so many schools around the country? In general, you think of the poor school or the rich school, but I'm discovering more and more that there are a lot that are blended. Like one of the schools that my dad taught at, you had both. You had very wealthy and you had very poor. And so for kids to see it as a possibility to be friends regardless, that's a
Mhm.
powerful, good thing.
Well,
It can be
I
a thing to overcome, but it's good to know that it's there.
thank you. And I hope so. I hope that monetary situations in my book should never be a reason people are not friends. It
Right,
just should.
right,
But
absolutely.
it does take work to
Yeah.
see things
Oh,
from someone else's side and be empathetic to and sympathetic to their situation when it's not what you grew up with.
right, right. Yeah, I love that. I think that's beautiful, powerful theme that we can all relate to, whether we're hanging out with people that are poorer or richer than us, we are definitely going to hang out with people that have some kind of difference from us. And
Absolutely.
so
And
that's
it doesn't have to be money either, like you said,
right.
some kind of difference. Every experience we have forms us and shapes us and how we see the world. And so that means everybody sees the world differently. And I think it's really important to understand that.
Yes. I really do feel like it flowed very naturally. And so that's why I wanted to ask
You
you, because you
did.
had so many things going on in this book. Like we had the
Oh,
very niche spelling, and then the competition just continues. You know, they're all competitive about the spelling, but then later they're competing about video games and hopscotch. Like I never thought of hopscotch being such a competitive thing, but it's like, wow, even that can be competitive.
oh yeah.
So
We
to,
used to have hopscotch competitions in elementary school,
nice.
so that was pulling from my own childhood.
I love seeing authors in their work as well, which you mentioned living in Oregon. And so is that why it's set there?
Yes, I lived in Oregon when I first got the idea, and I just loved Oregon so much. The greenery, the
I love it.
ocean, and where I lived was actually not super green. It was more dry but
Okay.
mountainous,
Yes.
and I just wanted to explore Oregon a little bit. I, of course, had fallen in love with the coast from
Yes.
everyone went on their vacations to the coast. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just what you did.
Yes.
And I loved it so much. So it was fun to explore. I had to study the map to decide where I wanted this fake town that I made to
Yes.
exist so that I could have it feel a little bit more real than
Right.
otherwise. But yeah, love Oregon.
Love it. All right, so let's talk titles because I love that it has dual purpose. And oh, do you know what I just want to say quick here is
Yes.
that talking to authors, and when I read a book, I'll tell my husband, if you read something there's a purpose to it. Like authors have precious few words to work with. And so we have a purpose, and they're with this precious few words in a subtitle. And so working with that, I love your titles because they're so powerful. And so final word, how was it coming up? It probably it feels so right because of the spelling, but tell us about
Yes.
creating these subtitles.
Oh, can I just tell you how much I hate coming up with titles? So,
Oh
um, I know I'm really grateful. I love how the titles turned out, but
no.
getting there was
Perfect.
really, really hard.
Right?
Yeah, we brainstormed like crazy, like all of the themes. Just I called this, let's see, the Winterton Bee is what I called this for
Okay.
my working title,
Nice.
as in Winterton Spelling Bee.
Yes.
But when we got to the point they wanted to make it a series, and not only that, I told enough people about it that I knew the title was not coming across as what it needed to come across as. Like they would think like the buzzing kind of bee, and that changes what you expect completely. So I knew that couldn't stay as the title. So we brainstormed all the words between my agent and my editor. And I believe it was my agent who came up with final word.
Nice.
And when I saw that one, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah,
There it is.
that that's brilliant because, we talked about how it had the meaning behind a final word for
Spelling
spelling,
naturally,
but also someone getting the final word, which was
which was
really tied to everything.
so important to these Wintertons. I'm going to
So
have my
important.
last say.
Yes. So I was really happy with where we landed on that. I can tell you that coming up with the word deception was also very difficult. Winterton Deception, like trying to name the series.
Yes.
I knew it couldn't be Winterton Bee because I didn't plan to have spelling bees in all of the books. So, it so much goes into a title. And once it gets there and it feels so natural, and now it's like, okay, yeah, but it's really interesting to see what goes into that. There were words we thought were better, perhaps, than deception, but that the publisher had used in other book titles. So we're like,
Um,
oh, we cannot use that. So there's a lot that goes into choosing a title. So when we came to book two, I'd written it and I never bothered to even give it a working title, just book two.
book two. Nice.
Finally, my editor came to me and said, hey, the marketing people are ready to start like building buzz for this. Do you have a working title? I was like, I'll work on that. How about that? Um, it was so hard because now a precedence was set. So
Right.
we knew it had to like fit in with Final Word as a
Yes.
second book.
And
And
have the
oh,
dual
I can't even
meaning.
tell you how many lists we went through. And I think it was my editor who finally came up. We talked about themes, trying to come up with a title, what is important. And the funny thing is, looking back, sometimes the things you say, she had suggested fault lines, and I was like, well, I mean, that could work, but I just don't think that it fits my book. And
Right.
they're like, have you read your book that you wrote?" I
Have you read your book?
was like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah,
Did you
okay,
ever read it
maybe I'll
beginning
see
to
which."
end instead of at pieces?
It's true. Sometimes you've worked on so many pieces and changed so many pieces that I see the book differently than
Then
pretty
I
much
do.
anybody else.
True. True.
So, when they pointed that out and I started to think about it, I'm like, actually, that is a really good title. So she said, we'll put it as a holder, but we can change it. But by the time we came back to it, I was like, no, no, this is actually a really good title for the book and the story. So, um, I'm so happy that you love them. It makes me
Yes.
happy because they were really hard to land on. We worked really hard for those titles, and I am happy too. But it took me some time to get there. It's kind of funny, it's just expectations and how how everything is playing around in my head. So
Yes. Well, and it's so important. I know so often, don't judge a book by its cover, don't judge a book necessarily by its title, but you do.
you do.
And when I've gone in, I was judging books actually for this. It's called the Sibbles Awards. And
Oh yeah.
so when I was getting into it at first, I was like, I'd pick up a book and I'd see the cover. And so I don't like to know a lot about the storyline. I'm one that wants to go in knowing as little as possible. And just because I love every surprise I can get. And
So fun.
so especially for me, that's my preconceived notion. That's my unintentional bias
Hmm.
is I'm going to see title and cover. And for a kid, what they pick up, that's, kids quickly. It's got to
Oh,
be something quick to grab attention. And so what appeals to a child? And so you did beautifully there, Janet. You appeal with the mystery. And then you have some niche things appeal. And then we've got these important themes, but kids don't want to know it's about communication. Kids don't want to know it's
oh,
about, all these little themes that are so important. But as the teacher, that's where the teacher and having it on a reading list, they're like, yes. But so we have all these woven in so beautifully. But the title, the cover, those are powerful for appealing to kids.
I was so happy with the cover when we were able to get it's Francisco Fonseca, who is the artist. He's an Italian artist, and he does such beautiful work. I was just overjoyed when he agreed to do
Colors
the
are
covers.
gorgeous
Oh,
and
so gorgeous.
realistic, and it just gives you, kind of like, well, why? Why is this on here? And then rather than if it had ever been the Winterton bee, you'd be like, where's the bee? So
Right.
yes, it's
Oh,
it's perfect with that deception, and then you see the setting. It definitely has great kid appeal with all of that wrapped all together. Love it.
well, thank you. Yes, so happy with the package.
Love it, love it. All right, so Janet, well, let's talk about your appeal for what you read. Tell us something that you have just loved, a book that you can recommend for our audience that's beside.
Absolutely. I'm going to hold it up here. It's called The Frame Up by Wendy McLeod McKnight. This is also a mystery. I have to it's like shiny
Is
on the
it shiny?
cover.
Yeah.
So trying to get it where you can
Oh, now
actually,
I just thought good.
okay. But
I I have not heard of it at all. How long ago did it come out?
gosh, not I mean it's long
Is it one you
in
read as a
years,
kid
but
or is it in recent years?
2018.
Okay,
So
so
kind of
it's fairly recent still. Okay.
fairly
Tell
recent.
us about it. I would love to hear about it.
So this book, it's a mystery. What I love about it is that Wendy McKnight, who wrote it, she took the museum where she lived and used real pictures and got permission to use real pictures. So it's about a boy who's going to live with his dad, who he's been estranged from for a while, who is a museum curator. And he's also an artist, the boy is. And when he gets to the museum, he's there late one night and he inadvertently discovers that the people in the paintings are alive.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yes. So he's got this secret, but what's really cool is that the pictures, we get them in the book.
Oh,
So we
that's
can
gorgeous.
see like
So, if
what
it's an
pictures.
audiobook, this is something that you would want to go and pick up the book and
Oh,
enjoy as well.
you really would. And it's so fun. So when they talk about the book within the text and who it is that has come alive, you
Yeah.
can look and see
Oh,
who they are. But this is another one. The title is so brilliant.
I was going to ask if it had dual meaning too, because
Yes.
it seems like the perfect one for it.
It is the perfect title to go with this story. Um, so there's things happening in the museum that the kids are trying to figure out. There's things happening within the paintings that they're trying to figure out. And all of this is happening while the boy is trying to figure out how to be in this new place, how to make friends, how to keep the secret that he has that no one's going to believe because who would believe that, the paintings are coming alive? And it's
Is it just at night,
just,
kind of like Night at the Museum type thing that they do any
well,
interact?
they can't come, except for that they can't come out of the frames,
Okay.
but,
Can you
and
travel from frame to frame, kind of like in Harry
yes, they
Potter?
can.
Okay.
So, like, they have their own connected world within the frames. So they can stay in their world, but, um, and it's that they're alive all the time, though. They just
Okay.
have to be still during the day.
Okay.
So it is a little bit different, but it's, kind of taking that idea of what if this would come alive, and the idea of what, like when artists paint something, they put so much of themselves into it
Yes,
that
like an author. Yes.
yes, like an author, and it has a bit of a soul. So what if that soul came alive? And that's kind of the premise of the whole book. Anyway, it's just
And then is it
highly, highly,
kind of
highly
like a
recommended.
mystery, right? Because
It's a
of the
mystery.
frame situation. Okay. That
Yes. So the frame up by Wendy McLeod McLeod. I don't reread a lot of books
yeah.
because I there's so many good ones. It's
There's
like
just not
hard to
time, right?
not
Yeah.
time. This is one I reread. It's just that good.
Nice.
So yeah, that is my recommendation.
That is so fun. Okay, well, added to the TBR right there. I love it. Can't wait to check it out. I have found places for myself in children's literature where I never would have expected because my jam was always fantasy. I love fantasy. And then I also, then second was probably historical fiction. But I found a love for mystery and just so many things and realistic fiction and even like Mona Lisa Vanishes. Like I found that I enjoy narrative nonfiction. Like
I loved that book. Oh my goodness.
right? And so there's just so many powerful things. So I love hearing from authors and so many people about these book recommendations because, listener, you might think that your kid's only into one thing, but try transitioning to more things because they really might find more love for other books other
Mhm.
places.
Yes, and I feel like we must be book siblings because that's exactly the path I took. I started loving all of the fairy tale retellings and the fantasy and kind of moved into contemporary and historical. I went through my historical phase and landed on mystery most recently.
Nice.
But when I read Mona Lisa Vanishes, now I'm like, I want to
Is
find
there other
something
stuff? Yeah.
that interesting and write that because I loved it so much. So,
Oh, that would be cool.
but
Yeah, I kind of
I
think.
don't have any plans yet, just
All
saying.
right. Well, I do always love to know what's next. So hopefully, I'm sure you're thinking about it, what book
Oh,
three will
yes.
be. Do you have any other things in the work?
Um, you know, I have I'm working on a YA mystery, so
Cool.
moving up just a little bit. Not a puzzle mystery though, so it's
Okay.
another learning curve.
Nice, nice.
But we'll see, we'll see. I've got to actually, I it takes so much to do the surrounding stuff before you actually write the work. I'm still working on the surrounding stuff.
Right.
So, but yes, that's the one that I'm working on now. So,
So fun. Well, we'll watch for it. Thanks so much, Janet, for taking the time to talk to us today.
and thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.